So I've started my sketching. A brief of it is already done. This is just a basic sketch with a horse. What you need to do is just decide which portion you want to highlight more in the canvas. Obviously, any central attraction on the canvas cannot be in the center. It has to be on either left or the right. You leave a little bit of space from the center and then you can start drawing. So I've just sketched a woman along with the horse. It's a very simple sketch, just a bit of eye, and then you don't need to draw the whole face because the rest of it is going to be covered with a lot of hair, and you're going to have some feathers here, and all of this is going to be colored, and then the horse mouth. So the size and proportion is important here. So as you can see, the face of the women and the face of the horse, there's a huge difference in the size. So it's almost, this portion is covering almost this area, so this is of the same height, and then you slowly go upwards and enlarge the face and make it up to this size. You can even use any of the existing drawings to have some references and start sketching. So once I've done this, I can start using my colors and do the base of it, and following which I will use more vibrant colors on top of that to make it more attractive. And the finishing is going to take some time because you really need to see what portions you want to highlight more, and then accordingly you need to give colors to them. Okay, so here you go. I'm now going to start with the base colors. Taking titanium white. This is the oil paint. I usually have a bigger tube so that I can cover it in my canvas and I don't have to wait for taking out the another tube. So usually white is used the most in oil painting, so we prefer keeping a bigger tube with us. Then I've got ivory black. This is a plain black. I'll take out some black on my palette. And loads of white, as you can see here. Now I'm going to use a broad brush. Which could be this one, and as you see, it has a code of 4500. Usually these brushes are available on any stationery shop, or you get to an art shop which sells all the art materials like colors, canvases. They should have this one. Doesn't matter if you don't have the same size, you can use a little different one. The idea is just to cover the base of it, and then we'll start finishing with the other things. So I'm going to mix these colors. I'm going to use more white and less of black. So I'm feeling the canvas is little dry, so I'll mix something here, and that something is called linseed oil. I think there are various companies who are making this, and it's easily available on any stationery shop or an art shop that sells any of the materials related to oil painting. So they should have this. It's purified linseed oil, so mainly used for oil paintings, and when you want the canvas to be a little wet, so that your brush can move very smoothly. So now I can easily mix it. I'll try to use more of white. Just keeping a little away from my main subject, which is the horse and the lady. I'm going to cover it whole. Idea is to leave the subject and cover the remaining area with a base coat. And since the most of this painting is going to be black and white, or you can say gray and white, I'll use more of white and black here, and at the end we will use some bright colors on some part of that. Let's keep it a surprise for now. Stay watching. So here is what I'm doing. Between the horse and the lady, I'm using a bit of darker colors, which is a little more gray, you know, just to, because these portions are going to be lighter. In order to highlight them, I would use darker colors here, make it a little more dark. So wherever there is a narrow area, see how I'm using my brush. I'm putting it a little pointed and then dragging it downwards. Doesn't matter if it little covers the horse, we can always refine it later. If you are a bit afraid of spoiling your sketch, you can use a thinner brush. So if you can see how I'm using my brush, I am rotating it just to give it a little blurry feeling. So I don't want my brush strokes to be very visible, so this is more of a cloudy effect that I want to create here, because the final painting has to show that this portion is on the background and it's blurred, so nothing has to be sharp here. So once I have colored this, I can use either a sponge or something, you know, broader brush to just merge it together. But let me first cover this background and then I will show you how to merge it. So just being careful here with the chin, yeah, and the nose. Now again I'm going back to lighter colors. Making it lighter as I go down. I just need to keep rotating my brush. I'm taking more white because I'm moving to a lighter area. And just keep rotating like this. Need not be very even. You can always use a mix of dark and light and cover the canvas. So this is how it looks from a little distance. Now let me cover this area so you can see. I'm just brushing off the base of it, back, and then the rest of the background. Keep dragging it, keep moving it. At this stage, I don't need to worry about any mistakes I do, or anything which requires too much of finishing can be done at the end. Now again, if I feel that my canvas is a little dry, I will use the linseed oil. can do a bit of touching here. Yeah. Now I need to make it a little smooth by giving a bit of touches of something soft. I could use a different brush to make it a little smooth, because this one is a little hard brush, and if I try to smoothen it, it will leave the brush strokes on the canvas. So I'll get rid of it for now. I think all of you must be aware of this brush. This is a normal whitewash brush used for paints also. You can get it in any hardware shop. Why I'm using this is because this is broad and it can merge the whole thing together, or I can do a bit of smudging here somewhere in the center. It's dry, so it's a soft one, so just have a look the effect of it. It's giving a cloudy effect. This is what I wanted, and moving it in little round so that I don't get any straight lines. It just shows me something there at a very distance. Just moving closer to the horse and taking away any extra paint here. Yeah. And then this portion. You can move it towards the hat. As you can see, I'm slightly moving the color on the edge of the horse, and the reason is that when I do my horse, it won't show a gap between those two, the base and the horse face. Same thing I will do here, a little bit of covering on the figure. Yeah. Again, making it a little blur. Yeah. Now, since this is something I don't have a clear plain background between these two figures, so I want to show that there is some land behind them somewhere far away. So I will use white and just try to show there is something out there at a distance. Likewise here. Using a little darker color to show some bushes there far away. You can see the effect of distant trees. Similarly here. The reason I'm giving a little bit of darker gray here is because I want to show there is a land here with some variation on the dark and lighter colors, and I can use some effects here of some bushes. Does it sound simple to you? If not, watch again. Just doing a bit of more merging. Now, my base is almost ready. Just making sure I don't show any brush strokes. Yeah. To give you a closer look on this, sounds good. What I've done here is I've started with the horse. You would see that the edge is a little lighter, so I've used white, more of white here, and it can't be consistent, so I'm using a bit of gray here, and then the rest of the portion is going to be more hairy and more of white, because the horse is actually white. I don't want to use too much of darker color here, but I do have to give some muscle look, so I would use a bit of lighter gray at places, as you can see. Now moving it towards the nose, so just giving it a bit of hairy look all the way. I'll leave the eye as it is. I'm not going to cover the eye. The good thing with oil paints is all your sketches that are appearing on the canvas with your pencil, all those sketch marks go away when you put your oil paints. Now a little more of white. This is where our so white is used the most. I'll mix a bit of linseed to make it little dilute. Again covering the horse, the remaining portions. So this portion is going to be darker, so I'm not focusing too much there. I'm focusing more on the lighter portions of the horse face. So the brush that I'm using is a hog brush, and the reason I'm using this is because the bristles are thick, and when I use it on the hair, if I want to give that hairy feel on the canvas, it's possible, very easy to do with this. If you use a soft brush, it will take time, and then you'll have to spend a lot of effort in giving it the hairy look that you want here. So with a hog brush, it becomes a little easy. Again, going down. So I'm just trying to cover the canvas initially with a lighter gray. Now you can see I'm moving it in circles. The reason is I don't want hairy texture coming up here. This is where I need a bit of hairy texture. I will use the I'll just show you how I'm using the paints on my brush. So this is my palette, and I'll look a bit of just on the tip of the brush. I'm taking a bit of black, and then this is where I want to show some hairs. I can simply do a bit of dry touches here. You can see how I'm getting the hairy look. Again, it need not be very consistent. You can just very light strokes to give the hairy feel. Little more darker. See how the hot brush helps me get the hair texture. So I'm using the same here, and you can see it starts giving you the kind of texture you want. Now this portion is a little muscular, so I will move a bit here and then give a curve here. Again, some hairy texture. Somewhere below the eyes you can show a bit of darker lines, but not like a human being. It has to be a little curvy. Yeah. Now that's my head, and just below the ear there has to be some kind of hairy texture here. Just a very little bit of, I don't want too much of hairy texture, but yeah. Now important is to see how I get the hair lining. You can see the ear is here. Now if I just do a bit of touches, you can see how it evolves into a hairy ear. And it is going towards this corner. Little more dark I would use. And a bit of curve here. Yep. I can stretch it to this end. We'll do a bit more finishing at a later point of time, but I just wanted to show you how the hot brush can be used to draw hair very easily. As you see here, I can easily give the look of a hair, and then some hair here. I can even use my tip to have some white on it, and you would see how beautifully it comes up. Now above the eye, you would see there has to be a little bit of curve, so I am just moving my white in a bit round way here, and then just leaving it here. Now a bit more muscular face has to have a line below the eye and going all the way up to the jaw. Okay. A bit of black I'm using now, else it won't be visible. And around So there's a bit of rounding here. Here I have to show some here. So again, I'm just tapping on the black color which is on my palette here. So the way I tap it is I take the tip and just tap. 5 taps are good enough. Now I have to show some here. So I would use very light of black. Don't worry if it gets little darker at certain points, that can always be corrected. Just dragging it down. Now this portion was a bit darker, so I made it light. Now let me use some dark color, which is not black here, it is a darkest gray. So how do I get the darkest gray? You use titanium black. And mix a little bit of white on titanium black and move it towards the nose. And the nose can't start from the end, it has to be somewhere here around the edge. So just giving the look of the darkest. So if you show a darkest portion here, it will show that this portion is deep. So that's my motive here. I want to show the nostrils. So I've done a bit of darker gray here, and then this is my other curve. And as I go towards the mouth or the jaw, I will make it lighter. Again, this portion has to be dark because this is the lower lip and it has to be broad. So I'll make it up to this point. Now this is a little lighter. Just to distinguish between the two muscles, I'm making this a little lighter. If you can see, the brush is having some hard bristles, so it's able to give me the hairy feel just below the jawline. Now I need a bit of lighter color here. So guys, I'm just putting some black color here, and that is just to make sure it shows little more dark edges here. And now I can start with my eyes. So eyes are going to be interesting. As you can see, I am putting some black here, leaving little space for the ball. Little curve here, all the way up to the end. Yeah. And touching the brush very lightly. Very lighter touches. The more lighter you do, it's going to give much better effect, because it gives you the hairline all the way. Now this is my end of the jaw. However, I need to show some curve here. So this goes all the way, the muscle goes all the way up to this point, but then there is another muscle curve here which I can show with bit of hair on the curve to give a little hairline effect. Yeah. This is another two. Now this has to be white. Again here a bit of darker linings to give effect of long hair. And the same coming over all the way here, so that gives more natural feel. I need to drag them longer. All the way you can have them coming up to this point. Yeah. Alright, so I can start with a thinner brush now. so that I get some more effects into the face of the horse. Okay, I'll drop this one. The reason is it has some black and I want some bright white. If I use the same brush, it's going to mix it up with the black and it will be gray. So I'll leave this brush now. Let me take another brush, and that should be a thinner one. So this is another hot brush, but it is thin. I will use this to give some finishing touches. So I've taken bright white and I'm going to touch it on the tip of the nose here. Like this. Very thin line here to give some shiny effect on the tip of the lips. I'll use a round brush. This is not hot, this is a very soft brush, and take some white on the tip of it and just do some bit of here. Yeah. And then some touching here. So you can see a very good effect of here. Now I'll use a bit here. Just because I have the darker background, the white here. Now how to I'm just lightening some color on the brush and eyelids in white. Very prominent. Now after the eye is done, you can see how the eyelids are appearing. Just putting some black here to show that there is a object here or a tree something.
मुझे लग रहा है वो गुफा सी हो पेड़ ना हो जंगल में कोई गुफा सी हो
Now we can get started with the figure here. So first of all, what I will do is start with the face and then slowly go with the hair, and then I will do the hat here and then the dress. So let me start with the lightest color, not very light but little grayish. So the best way is to use this one. Now since I don't want the brush strokes to be appearing on the face, I will use a softer brush, not this one. So it would be this one. It has to be lighter than this, so I can. Edge of the face has to be lighter, so I will have more white here, and I will make the edges lighter. As you can see here, edge of the nose. Now the nose. Now starting with the face, if you can see, there are certain portions which are dark in the face, like below the lip line. There's a bit of darkness here. And then some portions here will be darker. Edge of the nose is dark, so I do it that way. Then a bit of line. of softness here. Now I'll do the eyeball. Now the eye cannot be exactly white, so it has to be little gray. So I will use the lightest gray color here, which is very close to white. And has to be an eyeball. I can use gray. Just a touch of gray. Show the eyeball. Just this much is good enough, but just to make the eyeball a little smaller. Now I need a bit of black to show the eye lining. Just a bit of touch. And then on the top I already have. It's a little prominent, so I'll just wipe my brush and make it light. That's it. And a bit of touch for the eye, which will be in dark gray. Just this touch is good enough. Now I'll use little more white to make the, let me show you from closer. You can now see how I've done the face. I have to make it a little smoother, so I'll wipe my brush and just touch the edges. As you can see, the moment I have put some darker color below the lower lip pops out. See, this is what we wanted to see. Now on the chin, can have some dark portions here on the chin. I'll make it soft. Yeah, that's it. So that's the face of the lady. We can get started with the hat or the turban. Now for the turban, I just need an edge here, and then I can do some whites. Uh, a bit easier thing to do, but I will use my round brush. Do this upper portion first. As you can see, it's a dry canvas, so I have to use some linseed oil here. This is the hairline, just one stroke. You can even pull it downwards, that gives a even better effect. And then from here I can start my feathers. I can show some hair going all the way up to this point. And now my brush is little dry, so I can use the benefit of it to show the hair which are on the other side of the face, to start from the chin and just drag it downwards. Just do it this way, so it will show the hair on the other side of the face are coming down. Yeah. Now white color I will use to make a cap. So that's how I get the bit of turban here, and then I can show some feathers with a very light touches. And again, this is also a white lighter portion, so I'm just dragging my brush, just rotating all the way down, and now you can see that I have reached this point. Now this is a very interesting area. I have to make a round earring sort of thing, so I will use dark gray first and cover the entire area with dark gray. Now you can see that I'm making an earring sort of thing here. I just colored it round in gray and black, mix of gray and black here. Now idea is to just cover this area with some hairs coming over all the way. Now before I do rest of the portion, I have to make sure that I start the shoulders at the right place. So what I will do is just a bit of marking. I'll show you from a little distance how I do the hair. I'll focus on the red turban at a later point of time. So just see how I'm starting with the shoulders. Here below the earring I have some feather rope, feather kind of rope here. So I'm just giving some shades of that. This can be a little prominent because we want to show the brighter part of this turban. You can see that it is coming all the way like this. Now I can use a very thin brush. So it could be this thin to do the finer parts of the earring here. It's not exactly an earring, but it's a part of the turban, some decoration over there. Then with a bit of white on the tip of a very thin brush, I will just put some dots here. I can even use the same brush to get some hairy lines here. Yeah. Now the dress has got some feathers here, so just showing that in this portion. Now let's do the simplest part of the painting, which is the dress of this lady. Okay, so again I'm back to my broad hog brush. I will use um, the lighter colors first and then use the darker ones. So now when I say colors, I don't mean red, yellow or blue, but I am focusing more on different tones of gray. Okay, so this is white in my hand and I'm going to start on the dress here.
की गांठ सी लगा दी है हमने इसको।
This is now guys, you can see that I am starting with my turban. So for that I'm using black now because I have a lot of gray here. I have to distinguish gray and black. I have to keep some variations between the colors. So I'm just using some touches of gray here and some kind of variation to show some hair. And now these hair should come on the dress, so let me start from a logical point here and then bring them to the dress here. And you can see the so these are the hair. Now how do I differentiate between the fur here on the shoulder, which is part of the dress, and rest of the clothing? So since I've done the background here of the fur, now I can get started with my round brush, use some whites and put them on top of this. But before I do that, I have to make sure that the fur is completely covered with some background up to this point. Otherwise, I will not get the effect. Alright, so to get started with the fur, I need white, lots of white, and my round brush back. Now this is my round brush, and let me clear it off because it has got some gray in it. Now I'm taking, how do I take this? So the important thing to see here is that's my palette, and I am just giving a touch of white, and that's only on my tip. Now that's the place where I have to get the fur, and now the fur cannot be consistent all the way on the dress. It has to have some lightning effect, some there has to be a portion which will show more lights. So this part on the top can have more lights in it. So I would just use this rotation of my brush in downwards, but it need not be in the same direction. You can see that I'm moving that not very long. I'm just touching a bit of color and then dragging it down to very less distance. See the effect? It does give the effect of the fur. Let's have a closer look. I'm just touching my brush with some white every time, this just to give the effect that it's a very dense verse, and at the same time it has to pop out, and the only way I can do it is with a darker background, hence I used a lot of dark gray. Here you can see how I'm doing the fur on the jacket. I have to start from top to bottom. Yeah. Now the shoulder has to have more lighter touches, and it has to be dense white, then only I can show that. Now as you can see, I have to distinguish the headband from the face, so a bit of black lining, very light ones, not too much dark, and then the dividing point is here. Again, some edges I'm shining here. Now there is something here which I would like to show, so it doesn't appear as a plain band. It has something here, some kind of embroidery, so that I can show here. All right. Starting with the shoulder now. Again, the top has to be a little lighter. And then the bottom would be little dark. I can just do some rubbing here to use my color. Okay. Now it's a flat one, so I have to put some lighter tones on the top, which would be obviously white. Here you go. It's quite simple. Just use some touches of white on the edge. When it dries up, I can use a little more white on the top. At the moment, it won't allow me. And again here, I can give some shades of different lighter colors so it does not look like a flat arm. Okay, now I would like to distinguish this black background, so I'm using some darker color here. It's always a good idea to rotate your brush if you don't want straight lines to appear and you want a cloudy effect. There you go. All right, so let's get started with the most interesting thing on this is the hat or the turban. I'm using white now to give the feather effect. See how I'm using my brush. I have a mix of color, different tones on my brush, so I would like to use them in a random order here to cover the background. Now, this was the leftover portion, so I'll just cover it up with some white linings here. Okay. Now, we'll do the most interesting thing here, which you would be surprised with why I'm doing that, and I'll show you why. I'm just getting rid of this for now. And I get a new palette. Now, I'm going to use this. This is neon fabricryl. These are neon colors which glow in UV lighting conditions. So let me start with the feathers here. I'll start with some colors here. One thing we need to keep in mind is that since it's a mix of oil and neon color, I have to be careful with my brush. It will tend to take up the oil color on my brush and not really show you the effect. I'll just move the camera a little on the top, yeah, so you all can see it very clearly. I can use a thinner brush. Now I just have to move it and merge it so it shows there is a connection between the background and the foreground color, because these are quite bright. Now that was orange neon. Now let me start with yellow. Again, somewhere in the center of this. Now the background, I have to go back to my old palette and do some background here. We can even do it before we start with the neon. I want to keep it a little dry, so when I put my neon, it doesn't merge with this. It's okay to touch the neon, doesn't matter. covering up the entire canvas. There are some here. The brush has left some hair on it. You can just get rid of them. Yeah. So now you have a plain canvas to play around with the neons colors. Just see how I do it. I'm using some white to give an extension to the feathers.
चाचा ये जो आपके यहाँ सॉफ्टनर है ये वो वाला थोड़ी है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी थोड़ी लेता है.
I'm using some green neon on it. Usually the neons will come in 4 or 5 shades, but there are more these days available. Most of the common ones are orange, yellow and green, which I'm using here. Also you get a very bright color, which is pinkish. See how I'm using my brush.